Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are plugging into the new sphere, getting into the gritty, oily, and frankly fascinating mechanics of a Warhammer 40,000 faction that has just completely rewritten its own story.
We're talking about the Adeptus Mechanicus, the servants of the machine god.
Exactly. And our sources, we're talking tournament data, deep analysis from the top players, the Codex itself, they all paint this picture of a total transformation.
It's really night and day from where they started in 10th edition.
Right. So our mission today is pretty straightforward, but it's a tough one. We want to unpack how this super complicated, sometimes really frustrating faction went from, languishing at the bottom of the meta.
Well, they were struggling big time.
To becoming a definitive S-tier powerhouse. We're looking for the specific calculus, the layered synergies, the characters you just have to take, and that incredibly high skill ceiling that really separates the winners from everyone else.
That skill ceiling is a huge part of the story. It's not an easy army to just pick up and win with.
And that brings us to the headline, the thing that really made us decide to do this deep dive right now. AdMech is currently one of the most dominant factions in the entire game. As of the latest data, they are tied for the highest overall win rate. Okay, let's unpack this.
We really need to. And just to put a fine point on it, this isn't some, weekend fluke. The data is solid. As of September 30th, 2025, AdMech was sitting at a truly remarkable 59% win rate.
59. That's well into problematic territory for game balance, isn't it?
It is. I mean, for anyone who tracks the meta, that 55% mark is sort of the unofficial line in the sand. When a faction crosses that consistently, analysts start using words like overpowered or, broken.
And this wasn't just a spike.
Not at all. Their sustained average over a full 10-week period is still a massive 55.6%. They live in that top tier now.
But, and this is the fascinating part for me, they're not dominant in the way other factions have been. It's not like they just hit harder than everyone else.
Exactly. That's the crucial nuance here. When we've seen other factions dominate, like Ballistarii or certain Space Marine builds in the past, it's often been because of just raw, efficient killing power, what we call a stat check.
Right. They just have better numbers and they roll you off the table.
AdMech isn't that. Their dominance is in this weird, tactical Goldilocks zone. It requires, frankly, an extreme amount of player skill. It is a profoundly cognitively demanding army to play well. You have to be thinking 2 turns ahead all the time.
Which makes the success of players who master them even more impressive, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so to really get this, we have to look at the numbers and the history. You mentioned this is a resurgence, and that's putting it mildly.
It's a complete resurrection. That 59% high watermark in September is the headline, but even now in November, they're sustaining a rate around 56%. This isn't a fad.
And the proof is in the pudding, right? The tournament result.
That's the ultimate test. And you can't talk about AdMech's success without talking about the biggest tournament of them all.
Richard Siegler's win at the World Championships. That was the moment everyone sort of sat up and went, wait, what's happening with AdMech?
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
His undefeated 8-0 run to win the 2025 Warhammer World Championships was, well, it was legendary. And he did it with the Skitarii Hunter cohort, which we'll get into. But the key takeaway from his victory was that it wasn't about overwhelming firepower.
No, it was about control.
Meticulous, high-level execution, scoring points, defensive plays, sequencing his moves perfectly. He proved that AdMech rewards near-perfect play better than almost any other army in the game.
And it wasn't just him. If it were just one guy, you could say he's a genius player, but it's repeatable.
Exactly. It's not an isolated incident. We saw it across the board. Players like Tyler DeVries, Travis King, they were racking up multiple undefeated 5-0 runs at major GTs all through November. It proves the machine works. You just need a master architect to run it.
What I find so interesting is this paradox between how popular they are versus how well they do. You don't see AdMech on every single table, not like Space Marines.
That's a huge point. They have a relatively small but incredibly dedicated player base. You could almost say it's a faction that attracts a certain type of player, someone who enjoys the complexity.
The math-inclined player.
Yeah, you could say that. At the World Championships, they were only the 3rd most popular faction, just 28 players. They were behind Space Marines and Ballistarii.
So a smaller group is having this outsized impact on the meta.
Through the roof. Their efficiency is off the charts. The fact that this small cohort of masters can take them to the absolute pinnacle, it tells you their top lists aren't just strong, they're synergistic. They're tuned like a performance engine.
Okay, but we have to talk about the flip side. The internal contradictions. Because this dominance, this resurgence, It comes from a really, really low point.
A brutal low point.
Yeah.
In the early days of 10th edition, before the big balance update in June 2024, AdMech was, well, they were in a terrible place.
They were the meta's punching bag. I remember seeing win rates in the 30s.
You're not wrong. Multiple sources had their win rate at just 38%. They had a core detachment rule, rad bombardment that did almost nothing, and their units were just too expensive for what they brought to the table. That memory is important because that weakness is still there, lurking in the Codex.
So what you're saying is that 59% win rate isn't for the whole army. It's for a very specific, optimized slice of it.
Precisely. It's a two-tiered Codex. The top tier is these hyper-synergistic, expertly built lists, the Skitarii Hunter Cohort, for example. But if you try to build a more traditional list or use some of the less optimized units, you're going to struggle. You'll feel that 38% win rate very quickly.
Well, let's put a name to some of those underperformers just to show the contrast.
Oh, for sure. Look at the Cataphoron destroyers. On paper, they look cool, big guns. But in reality, the competitive community basically says they have no meaningful role.
I've heard them called wet noodles.
That's the term. They just lack the mix of mobility and hitting power you get from other units. A bad points investment most of the time.
And what about the big stompy robots? The Castellans.
The Castellan robots. A classic case of looking great but playing poorly. They're almost universally seen as ludicrously overcosted for what they do. They're slow, their damage is swingy, and they need so many points spent on characters just to keep them alive and moving.
So they're basically expensive paperweights unless you build the entire list around them.
And even then, it's questionable. The only place they really see play is in a very specific detachment, the Halo-Screed Battle-clade, which can give them some temporary buffs to make them worthwhile.
Even some of the classic vehicles struggle, right? Like the Dune Crawler.
Yeah, the Onager Dune Crawler. It should be this tough, reliable anchor for your gun line, but it's just a bit too fragile for its cost. It doesn't have a built-in invulnerable save, so dedicated anti-tank fire just picks it up. Some analysts give it a really low trust level.
So, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the faction's success isn't about the whole book being amazing.
Not at all. It's about surgical precision. It's about players figuring out that maybe 30% of the Codex can be amplified by rules and characters to an insane degree, and that 30% has to carry the rest.
That's the skill ceiling. You have to know which 30% to use and how to protect it.
Mastery is paramount. Because if your plan fails, if your key units die, you don't just become average, you become that 38% win rate army again, instantly.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics, the core strategic pillars. If the Codex is a machine, what are the gears that make it run?
The absolute core, the engine of the whole army, is the Doctrina imperative system. It's a choice you make at the start of every single battle round, and it gives a powerful army-wide bonus for that turn.
And that choice dictates everything you're going to do for that round.
Everything. It forces you to decide your tempo. Are you on the defensive or the offensive? Because you can't be both.
So let's break that down. Let's say I want to dig in, form a gun line, and just blast away. I pick the Protector imperative. What does that get me?
Protector is your defensive stance. First, it makes your shooting more reliable. All your units get +1 to their ballistic skill. Better still, if a unit didn't move, its guns get the HEVY keyword, which gives them another bonus to hit.
So stay still, hit on twos. Got it.
But the real magic is the defensive part. It gives a -1 penalty to hit rolls for any enemy trying to attack your battle line units in melee, or any of your units that are close to your battle line.
Ooh, so that makes charging your squishy Skitarii suddenly a really bad idea for the opponent.
It's a terrible idea. Suddenly their elite melee troops are swinging on 4s or 5s. It creates this defensive attrition layer that can be surprisingly tough to break through.
Okay, but what if I need to move? What if I need to get aggressive and take an objective?
Then you flip the switch. You go into the Conqueror imperative.
And that turns the army into an offensive machine.
For a turn, yes. It's all about aggression. Your melee units get better weapon skill. Your ranged weapons get the assault keyword so you can advance and still shoot, which is critical for a slow army like AdMech.
And the big one is the armor penetration, right?
That's the killer. It gives +1 armor penetration to attacks from your battle line units or anyone near them. So against tough, armored targets, it suddenly makes even your basic infantry a credible threat.
And you said the June 2024 update was what really made this system shine.
It was the game changer. Before that update, the imperatives only affected certain units and the bonuses were weaker. It felt inefficient. The update made them apply to almost the entire army and cranked up the power.
So now it's the decision you make every turn that defines your strategy.
It is the absolute heart of playing AdMech well. Which leads us to the second pillar, which is also the Army's greatest weakness, the battle line dependency.
The Wi-Fi mechanic.
The Wi-Fi mechanic, exactly. This is the real skill check. So many of the Army's best abilities, invulnerable saves, full hit rerolls, powerful stratagems, they only work if the unit is within 6 inches of a battle line unit.
Which are your cheap, fragile Skitarii Rangers or Vanguard.
Yep. So you have these fragile node units broadcasting a signal, and your powerful tanks and big guns are the receiver units that need that signal to function at full capacity.
So let's play that out. What happens if I'm the opponent and I manage to snipe those Skitarii Rangers? What happens when the Wi-Fi goes down?
It's a catastrophe. A total system collapse. Your unit of cataphorm breachers, they lose their full hit rerolls. Their damage output is suddenly cut in half. Your Castellan robots might lose movement buffs and become sitting ducks. Your onagers lose their defensive auras.
Wow, okay. So the whole game becomes about protecting these cheap little infantry squads.
100%. Mastering AdMech is mastering positioning. It's about creating a protective bubble around your battle line nodes, sometimes even sacrificing other units just to keep that 6-inch Wi-Fi range active. It's a house of cards, and they are the foundation.
Okay, which brings us to the final pillar, the force multipliers, the characters who are basically mandatory software upgrades. Let's start with the one who makes AdMech actually scary against tanks, the tech priest Manipulus.
The Manipulus is the linchpin of their anti-tank damage. It all comes down to one ability, Galvanic Field. It gives the unit he's leading lethal hits.
And lethal hits means a 6 to hit automatically wounds the target.
Automatically wounds. You skip the strength versus toughness roll entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that ability, when you pair it with certain guns, just breaks the normal rules of the game.
It completely rewrites the math. You put them with a unit of his Cataphorm breachers, and you give them their heavy arc rifle. That weapon has the keyword anti-vehicle 4 plus kit.
Meaning it scores a critical hit on a 4 or more against a vehicle.
Exactly. Now, you add lethal hits from the Manipulus. So any hit roll of a 4, 5, or 6 against a vehicle automatically wounds. Doesn't matter if you're shooting at a light transport or a toughness 12 super heavy tank.
So against a knight where you'd normally be struggling to wound, you're now wounding on half your shots, guaranteed.
It's an incredible boost in consistency. It's why the Manipulus is basically an auto-include in any list running breachers. He turns theoretical damage into real, reliable damage. Plus, he can give his unit a one-time use for plus invulnerable save, which is just icing on the cake.
And then there's the big guy. The Archmagos himself, Ballistarii Cawl. He's expensive, points-wise. How do you justify him?
You justify him because he provides something AdMech desperately needs. Certainty. His main ability, the Invocation of Machine Vengeance, is basically the AdMech Oath of Moment.
The big reroll aura.
The biggest. You pick one enemy unit on the board. For the rest of the phase, your entire army gets to reroll all failed hit rolls against that target.
A full hit reroll is the dream for any shooting army.
It's the absolute holy grail. And when you combine that with a unit like the Ironstrider Ballistarii, who already have the twin-linked keyword on their guns to reroll their wound rolls,
you're just not missing or failing to wound.
You've almost completely eliminated randomness. You're hitting on 3s with a full reroll, then wounding with a full reroll. That's how you reliably take down the biggest, scariest things in the game. It's what makes the army work at a tournament level.
And he's not a glass cannon himself, is he? He can take a punch.
For sure. He's toughness 8, 10 wounds, a 2+ save, a 4+ invulnerable save, and he can even repair himself. He's a legitimate anchor. You plant him in the middle of your army, and he forces your opponent to dedicate serious firepower to get rid of him, which takes the heat off your actual damage dealers.
Okay, so those are the core parts. Let's talk about the blueprints that put them all together, the detachments. We've got 2 main competitive options, right? Starting with the World Championship winner, the Skitarii Hunter Cohort.
The SHC, yeah. This is the attrition engine. The whole philosophy here is defensive. It's about layering rules to make your army so durable, so mathematically inefficient for your opponent to shoot at, that you just outlast them and win on points.
And it all starts with one simple but powerful rule.
Universal stealth. All your Skitarii infantry, your mounted units, and your Ironstriders get stealth. So biggest one to be hit from range. Right away, your whole army just got tougher. On top of that, your Skitarian units get the benefit of cover if they're shot from more than 12 inches away.
So this is the famous defensive onion strategy. You're just stacking layers of protection.
That's the perfect way to describe it. Layer 1 is stealth, so Magus 1 to hit. Layer 2 might be the protector imperative. For another Magus 1 to hit in melee. Layer 3 is cover. for +1 to your save. Layer 4 could be an aura from an Onager Dunecrawler, giving a nearby unit a 4+ invulnerable save.
So an enemy trying to shoot one of your key Ironstriders suddenly has to get through all of that.
Right. A unit that should be hit on 3s is now being hit on 4s. A unit with a 3+ save now has a 2+ save. The amount of firepower an opponent needs to commit to kill just one of your units goes up exponentially. It's a strategy built on making your opponent's math fail.
But there's one enhancement in this detachment that just seems to break the rules entirely. The Cantic Thrallnet.
This is the secret sauce, the golden ticket. You give this to a Skitarii Marshal, and it lets him pick one unit and say, you get to have both the Protector and Conqueror imperatives active at the same time.
Whoa, okay, so one unit gets to be a defensive fortress that's also a mobile, armor-piercing threat.
Exactly. It breaks the fundamental either choice of the army rule. You can have a unit of Vanguard, for example, that can advance and shoot with better AP from Conqueror, while also hitting more accurately and being more benevolent to be hit in the melee from Protector. It creates this one super versatile unit that can solve any problem on the board.
So that's the defensive grinded-out option. What's the other path, the Halo-Screed Battle-clade?
This is the programmable aggressor. It's a much more flexible, offensive-minded detachment. It gives up the universal durability of the SHC in exchange for the ability to give targeted, powerful buffs to specific units each turn.
So less of an onion and more of a surgical strike.
A perfect analogy. The core detachment rule gives you re-rolls on your hit rolls in the shooting phase, which is nice. But the real power is in an ability called Nunospheric Transference. Okay, what does that do? Every command phase, you can pick 1 to 3 of your units and give them a specific software upgrade for the turn. You can pick Electromotive Energization for +2 inches of movement.
Which is huge for a slow army.
Critical. Or you can pick Microactuator Bracing for +1 toughness, which is an amazing durability boost. Or my favorite, Predation Protocols, which lets a unit advance and charge.
What's fascinating here is how this detachment suddenly makes some of those wet noodle units we talked about actually good.
It completely revitalizes them. Take those Castellan robots. Normally they're toughness 9, which is okay, but you give them that +1 toughness buff, and now they're toughness 10. That is a massive difference against common strength 12 anti-tank weapons. Your opponent goes from wounding on 3s to wounding on 4s.
It's a huge swing in survivability.
Yeah, it is. And it unlocks units like the Sicarian Ruststalkers. Normally they're too slow to be a reliable melee threat. But you give them advance and charge, and suddenly they're screaming across the board. The detachment lets you decide which of your units gets to be an all-star for that specific turn to solve the exact problem you're facing.
So you're customizing your army strengths on the fly.
Yeah, every single turn. It's a much more proactive and, frankly, more complex playstyle than the SHC's defensive castle.
Okay, we've done the software. Let's get to the hardware. The S-tier units themselves, the ones you see in every competitive list.
We have to start with the ones that are basically 100% mandatory. First up, Skitarii Rangers. You just don't leave home without them.
They're the Wi-Fi nodes, so that makes sense.
They're the Wi-Fi nodes, but they do more than that. Their key ability is that they can sticky objectives. They just have to be on an objective at the start of your turn, and you control it until your opponent takes it, even if the Rangers move away.
So you can grab an objective in your backfield and then move that unit up the board to support your army without losing the points.
Exactly. It frees up your most critical units to do what they need to do. Plus, they're cheap and can take some decent special weapons like a sniper rifle. They're the ultimate utility piece.
And right alongside them, also at 100% inclusion, are the Sicarian Infiltrator.
The Infiltrators are what I'd call a counter-meta unit. They exist to solve a problem AdMech has always had, which is early board control. They have the infiltrate rules, so you can deploy them way up the board at the start of the game.
So you're immediately contesting those valuable midfield objectives?
Immediately. You stop your opponent from just walking onto them for free. But their real power is their debuff aura.
Oh, this is the leadership thing, right? This is nasty in 10th edition.
It's brutal. Their neurostatic interference aura gives a 9-1 penalty to leadership and battle shot tests to nearby enemies. And it's Matic 2 if the infiltrators are near a battle line unit.
And failing a battle shock test means your objective control drops to 0.
Right. So these guys can walk up to an objective held by an enemy, and just by standing there, cause that enemy to fail their test and lose control of the objective. It's an incredible tool for objective play. Plus, there are no slouches in combat, they have a ton of shots, and their melee weapons can put out a surprising amount of damage.
All right, moving on to the scoring machines. The units that aren't there to kill, but to win you the game, you have to be talking about the Pteraxii Skystalkers.
The absolute kings of utility. S tier, 20 out of 25 top lists had them. They are the embodiment of the scoring over killing philosophy that wins tournaments now.
And it's all because of their movement shenanigans.
It's all about the movement. They can deep strike, they can fly, but the key is their move, shoot, move ability. After they shoot, they can just make a normal move of up to 6 inches or even 12 inches if they're near a battle line unit.
So you can describe that tactical loop for us. How does that win you points?
It's a perfect loop for scoring secondary objectives. You deep strike them into a corner of the board, you score your points for, say, behind enemy lines, you shoot their little carbines, maybe you kill 1 or 2 cheap enemy models, and then you move them 12 inches straight behind a solid wall.
So the opponent can't see them, can't shoot them, can't charge them?
They're completely safe. You scored points and your unit is untouchable. You just repeat that every turn. It forces your opponent to waste time and resources screening their own backfield, pulling their army apart, while you rack up an insurmountable lead.
And then there's the cavalry, the Cerberus Raiders. A bit less common, but they have a very specific job.
They're your early warning system and your mobile screen. Their whole deal is a reactive move. When an opponent ends a move within 9 inches of them, the Raiders get to move 6 inches.
So a good player can use that to just dodge a charge or...
Or, more cleverly, use it to move in front of a charge. You sacrifice the cheap Raider unit to block a charge that was meant for your multi-100-point tank behind them. They are disposable pawns in the grand chess game of movement.
Now, for the big guns, the anti-tank hammer. It's all about the Ironstrider Ballistarii, the laser chicken.
The laser chicken reigns supreme. S-tier efficiency. 18 out of 25 lists. This is, point for point, the best anti-tank unit AdMech has. The big change was that June 2024 update that gave them the twin-linked keyword.
So they re-roll their wound rolls?
You re-roll their wound rolls. So let's put the whole package together. You've got an Ironstrider with a last cannon. You point it at an enemy tank.
Okay.
Stage 1, Ballistarii Cawl is nearby, so you get to re-roll your hit roll. You're almost certainly hitting. Stage 2, it's twin link, so you get to re-roll your wound roll. You're almost certainly wounding. Stage 3, it's in the Skitarii Hunter Cohort, so it's got stealth and it's probably in cover, making it incredibly hard for the opponent to shoot back.
So it's a durable, fast, and hyper-reliable damage dealer.
It's a whole package. It's fast with a 10-inch move. It's reasonably tough. And its damage output is just incredibly consistent. It's everything you want in a competitive unit.
And what about the other heavy hitters? The Cataphron Breachers still have a role, right?
Oh yeah, there's still A-tier lethality, but they need that support we talked about. They are basically T7 3-wound mini-tanks.
Yeah.
But they're only truly deadly when you have that tech priest Manipulus giving them lethal hits.
To make their arc rifles sing.
Exactly. With him, and with the full hit rerolls they get from being near a battle line unit, they are just a wood chipper for enemy vehicles. Their big weakness is that they're slow, only a 5-inch move, and their big bases make them an obvious target.
So you need to deliver them safely.
Which is where the Scorpius vehicles come in. The Scorpius Dunarider is the transport. It's fast, and its job is to get that precious cargo of breachers or key vanguard squad into the middle of the board without them getting shot to pieces on the way.
And the other Scorpius, the Disintegrator. The tank version.
The Scorpius Disintegrator is your mobile fire base. It's got 2 good gun options. The Ferrant Cannon is just a solid, reliable anti-tank gun. But the Bolero's energy cannon is the really interesting one. It has indirect fire.
So it can shoot things it can't see.
Right. It's your tool for digging out annoying infantry units that are hiding on an objective behind a wall. It's a key piece of utility that many lists include one of. Its only real weakness is that it's a bit fragile, no invulnerable save, so you have to hide it well.
Okay, so to put this all together, we need to look at the list that proved it all worked. Let's break down Richard Siegler's World Championship blueprint.
His list is really a masterclass in this philosophy.
Yeah.
It was built with the Skitarii Hunter Cohort, so right away, the focus is on defense and resilience, not just raw killing power.
He understood the assignment. Win on points, not on kills.
100%. And it started with the foundation, the battle line units. He knew they were the weak point, so he built in redundancy.
So he didn't just take the minimum.
No, he ran 3 separate battle line units.
Yeah.
1 squad of Rangers, 2 of Vanguard. He was planning for his opponent to kill 1 or even 2 of them. By having the 3rd, he guaranteed that his army's Wi-Fi buffs would stay online for the entire game. It's a simple but brilliant move.
And what was his defensive anchor? The anvil of the list.
That role was played by 2 Onager Dunecrawlers. And interestingly, their main job wasn't even to shoot. They sat on his backfield objectives and projected their 4+ invulnerable save aura onto his critical battle line squads.
So that's layer 4 of the onion, making the unkillable even more unkillable.
Exactly. He made his most important vulnerable units into tiny fortresses.
And for his hammer, his damage, he went all in on the most efficient option.
All in on the Ironstrider Ballistarii. He knew they were the best tool for the job. He ran them at the last cannons, parked them near Cawl for the re-rolls, and let the detachment's stealth rule keep them alive. It was a concentrated, hyper-efficient block of anti-tank damage.
But the truly mind-blowing part of his list, the thing everyone talks about, is the scoring arm, the sheer number of Pteraxii.
It's legendary. He ran 9 separate small units of Pteraxii Skystalkers. 9.
9 units. That's just committing fully to that move, shoot, move strategy.
It's a complete paradigm shift. He wasn't playing the same game as his opponents. While they were trying to punch through his defensive onion in the middle of the board, these 9 fast-moving units were just flying around the edges, scoring secondary objectives and then hiding.
The opponent couldn't be everywhere at once.
They couldn't. They'd have to commit valuable units to chase these cheap Skystalkers around, pulling their army out of position, while Siegler's main force held the center. By turn 4, he'd often have such a massive lead on points that the game was effectively over, even if most of the armies were still on the table.
And he had one last clever little trick to protect this whole strategy. A piece of anti-meta tech.
Yeah, the techno-archaeologist. This is what shows you he's thinking at another level. He included 2 of them. Their main utility is an aura that stops enemy units from setting up from reserves within 12 inches.
Ah, so it's a deep strike denial bubble.
A huge one. By placing them in his backfield, he made it impossible for armies that rely on dropping units in your face, like Grey Knights or Necrons, to execute their game plan. It was a cheap, effective insurance policy that protected his entire strategy from being undone by a sneaky teleport.
So the whole list was a perfect machine. The defensive onion, the efficient hammer, the overwhelming scoring arm, and the anti-deep strike insurance.
It's the perfect synthesis. He forced his opponents to make bad choices. Do you try to crack the uncrackable defensive core? Or do you chase the uncatchable scoring units? Either way, you're playing his game, and he's already 3 steps ahead, racking up points.
So we've come full circle, we've dissected the machine and seen how all the cogs fit together. It's clear that AdMech's power is this incredibly technical, synergistic thing. So what does this all mean? For you listening, I think there are 2 huge takeaways here. First, AdMech's strength isn't in any single unit. It's in the layered synergies. The Doctrina plus the character buff plus the detachment rule. You have to use them all together.
And if one piece fails, the whole thing can fall apart.
Right. Which leads to the second point. The survival of the battle line is everything. It is absolutely non-negotiable. If those Skitarii go down, the Wi-Fi turns off, and your S-tier army instantly reverts to that painful 38% win rate we talked about.
And I think the broader takeaway for the whole game is that the success of AdMech really confirms a truth about this edition of 40K. Efficiency over raw lethality is the key to winning.
It's not just about having the biggest gun anymore.
Not at all. The best units in Siegler's list, the Ironstriders, the Skystalkers, they're the best because they offer the most utility or the most durability for their points cost. They allow a skilled player to control the board and the flow of scoring. AdMech is the ultimate proof that mastering the movement and scoring phases of the game is more powerful than just mastering the shooting phase.
So now that you understand the calculus of the Omnissiah, the final question is for you to think about. Which path do you prefer? Are you drawn to the defensive mathematical attrition of Richard Siegler's Skitarii Hunter Cohort? Do you want to build an unkillable fortress and win a slow, grinding victory?
Or does the idea of the Halo-Screed Battle-clade appeal more? The fast, programmable aggression, the ability to create bespoke super units every turn to surgically dismantle your opponent.
Choose wisely, Archmagos. We'll see you on the next deep dive.